Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sooner Nation podcast. Man, you look at Saturday night, the game in Norman, you just kind of feel like that's the type of night that college football was made for. You got Owen Field under the lights, College GameDay in town, ABC primetime game, and two of the biggest blue bloods in the sport colliding in what is a top 20 showdown with Oklahoma and Michigan. And you know, everybody knows this. Everybody has this feel, whether you're Big Ten, whether you're SEC, whether you're Maize and Blue, whether you're Crimson and Cream. This isn't just another non-conference game. This is a measuring stick for both programs. It's a statement opportunity, and it's one of those games that both fan bases are going to remember for a long, long time. So here's the backdrop. Oklahoma and Michigan have only met one time before. I have to go all the way back to 1975, and I know a lot of you guys, most of you guys listening probably weren't even around then, right? Because you'd be 50 years old. And not that 50-year-olds don't listen to the podcast, you know, because I'm north of 50, and I'm recording the podcast. I'm just saying, a lot of you youngsters out there, you don't remember this game. Barry Switzer's program won that game 14-6. Now you fast forward 50 years later, and here we are again. And the stakes are huge. For Brent Venables, this is about proving that his rebuild is nearing completion. For Sharon Moore, a former Sooner, it's about showing that Michigan can still punch at a championship level with a freshman quarterback and a roster that's been in transition. And that's where the story starts. I think you have to start with the quarterbacks. John Mateer gave Oklahoma fans just a show last week in his debut. Nearly 400 yards through the air. You got 3 touchdown passes. You got a rushing touchdown. And I think, for me, the most impressive thing that he did last Saturday night was he spread the ball to 9 different receivers. That screams confidence. It screams command. But this Saturday is going to be a whole different test. Michigan's defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, is one of the best in the game. And the reason why is because he is a genius at disguising coverages and making quarterbacks feel uncomfortable. So we're going to get to see how John Mateer handles that chess match. And that's probably going to be the first major deciding factor in this game. But if you flip to the other side of the field, it's Bryce Underwood, the number 1 recruit in the country, a true freshman. And yeah, listen, the hype is real. I know he's an opponent. I know he's young, but the hype around this young man is real. He looked polished in his debut against New Mexico. But now he's coming to Norman. And he's coming to Norman in prime time. And that's an entirely different world. And Brent Venables has built a defense that can be amongst the best, not just in the SEC, but in the entire country. And now Underwood is about to find out how fast and how physical SEC-style football feels. And not just his first ever road trip, but his first ever road trip at night against a top 20 opponent. But this game is not just about quarterbacks. It's about what happens in the trenches. And that's where Michigan thrives. They've got one of the strongest offensive lines in the country. They've got a good running back in Justice Haynes. I mean, he's just a hammer. 159 yards and 3 touchdowns last week against New Mexico. And that's That's classic Michigan football. Run it, wear down the defense, control the game. And so Oklahoma's defensive front, they've got to respond. They've got to force third and long. They've got to unleash the pass rush. And they absolutely cannot let Michigan dictate the tempo of this game. And again, you flip it around, and Oklahoma's offensive line, there's questions there. And we know the reasons, we know the excuses, if you will. But the bottom line is they managed just over 100 rushing yards in week one. And that just won't cut it this week. If you listen to the preview podcast that Caleb and I did, the floor is 150. 150 yards is what Oklahoma has to have at minimum, in my opinion. And if John Mateer has to carry this offense without balance, I just feel like, man, Martindale's defense, they're going to smell blood. Now, you look at what Vegas is saying. They see this as a tight game. Oklahoma, 5.5-point favorite. You got an over-under that's at 46.5. And so that tells you that the odds makers expect a lower scoring physical type battle. ESPN's FPI gives Oklahoma a 53.5% chance to win. So basically you could say, even with home field advantage, this game's a coin flip, and probably being in Norman, there's your tiebreaker. Now, beyond the X's and O's, there are storylines everywhere. Sharon Moore coming back to Norman, where he once coached as an assistant, where he played here. Venables facing a former pupil of his in the biggest non-conference game of his tenure, and we talked about that on the previous podcast. And on top of all of that, this is SEC versus Big Ten. This is a collision of two leagues that have dominated this sport. So what's on the line Saturday night? It's more than just a win in week two. For Oklahoma, it's legitimacy. It's a chance to plant the flag, if you will, and say, yes, this team can go toe-to-toe with a team that's been one of the sport's best over the last 3 seasons. For Michigan, it's about proving that the program hasn't lost its edge without Jim Harbaugh, and that even with a true freshman quarterback, the standard has not slipped. So when toe meets leather Saturday night, the whole country is going to be watching. And one team's going to walk away with a statement win, the other with a head full of questions. So right here in Norman, under the lights, with College GameDay in town, I mean, it's just, this is as big as it gets for the month of September. So we're about to find out just how real this Oklahoma team is. And that's what this episode's about as we dive into it. Welcome to the Sooner Nation podcast.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Hey, so welcome back, everybody. Huge thanks for listening, for tuning in to the podcast. I always want to throw this out there. Please do us a favor. If you like the content, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're finding us, would you just subscribe? That really goes a long way in helping support what we do here at Heartland Sports and with the Sooner Nation podcast. You can find us online, heartland-sports.com. We've got your Sooner content there. We've even got Oklahoma City Thunder content. Preseason starts next month now. So that's where you can find us. But here we're talking Oklahoma and Michigan Saturday night under the lights, Gaylord Family, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. Like we said, it's not just another non-conference game. This is Oklahoma. This is Michigan. Two of the bluest of blue bloods in college football history going head-to-head in a top 20 clash. We talked about, Caleb and I, in the previous podcast, whether there's playoff implications here or not. The media is going to say there's implications written all over this game. You've got College GameDay in town. You've got the primetime ABC Spotlight. And I believe this stadium, man, Oklahoma fans are hungry. Oklahoma fans are just hungry for something big, and I think the stadium is going to be rocking. And I mean, this is the kind of stage that both programs live for. And to me, it's crazy to think that this is only the second meeting ever between these two schools. And you got to go back to 1975. I mean, you got to go back to that Bayer-Switzer game, 14-6, 50 years. It's been 50 years since that game. And I think you just kind of you can feel the weight that this carries. Now, for Venables in Oklahoma, this is, again, it's about proving that the rebuild is done. This is year 4. There can't be any more excuses. This is about stating that Oklahoma belongs back in the national conversation, not just an SEC newcomer anymore, but as a true contender. And, Sharon Moore kind of has some of the same things. It's about showing that even with the roster turnover, the true freshman quarterback, that this is a program. The Wolverines are still physical. They're still disciplined, and they're still as dangerous as ever. So I want to go back to the quarterbacks for a second. 400 yards for John Mateer, but Illinois State, right? 3 touchdowns through the air, 1 rushing touchdown. And then, like I said, just spreading the ball. 9 different receivers. And so that's what you saw from Oklahoma. You saw a lot of differences between the quarterback play of 2024 and what we got in game 1 of 2025. It's not a guy who just locks in on one target. It's a quarterback who's actually running the offense with poise and confidence. But to be honest with ourselves, Saturday nights, it's a different animal. We talked about Wink Martindale in that opening segment. And he has legitimately built a reputation for confusing quarterbacks. You've got exotic blitz looks. You've got masterful coverage disguises. And so I think even going back to Washington State, Mateer's going to see things that he's never seen before in his career. And so his ability to adjust in real time, it's going to go a long way in determining how this game plays out. But you've got a very similar situation, if not even a little bit worse, on the other sideline. Because the Michigan's Wolverines are going to roll out Bryce Underwood. Again, the number 1 recruit of the 2025 class. And I'll say it again, the hype around him is real. He looked sharp for a freshman, but again, New Mexico State, right? We talk about Illinois for Oklahoma. It was not New Mexico State. It was New Mexico for Michigan. But at the end of the day, 251 yards, 1 touchdown. And he showed flashes of his talent. But let's not sugarcoat it, right? Norman, Oklahoma, under the lights in your first road start as a true freshman, this is a gauntlet for Underwood. And just like Martindale on one sideline, you've got Brent Venables on the other, who's built a defense that I've said it. I've said it going back to the preseason, especially when you look at their front 7 and how the safeties played last Saturday night. This could be one of the best defenses in the entire country. You've got speed, you've got athleticism all over this field. And so, like Mateer, Underwood's going to be tested in ways that he hasn't even imagined. So can he stay poised? Can he avoid turnovers on the road? And I believe if he can do that, then Oklahoma's in trouble. I believe Michigan's got a real shot. But I also believe that this is a type of environment, this is a type of situation that could get away from Underwood very fast. And you got to look at what happens in the trenches. Michigan thrives at the line of scrimmage. They've got a strong offensive line. They've got, they're paving the way for Justice Haynes. 159 yards, 3 touchdown performance in week 1. And that's, like we said in the opening segment, that's what Michigan wants to do. That's old school Michigan football. Just run the ball, control the clock. And so Oklahoma's defensive front, they've got to hold up. So what's the goal? What do you want? You want to get Michigan off schedule. You want to force Michigan into obvious passing downs, and then you get to unleash that pass rush. But if the Wolverines are able to control the line of scrimmage, again, that tilts the game their way, and it does so quickly. And don't forget about Oklahoma's own offensive line. I get it. The tackles were out last week. I get it. You had injuries. But all we have to go on is what we have to go on. 103 rushing yards in the opener. I'll say it again. That's not going to work against Michigan. And if Oklahoma can't run the ball, then you've got a defense on the other side led by Martindale that's just going to be licking its chops. And so I think that's why when you look at the lines and the spreads, I think that's why it's so close. And Vegas gives us an interesting lens here because right now, as I'm recording this, Oklahoma is a 5.5 point favorite. The over-under here sits at 46.5. So what that tells you is that the odds makers, they see this as a defensive battle with points coming at a premium. And both teams failed to cover their spreads in week 1. So now you got a little bit of a caution baked into that line. Now ESPN's Football Power Index gives Oklahoma just a slight edge, 53.5%. And like I said in the opening segment, I mean, that's basically a coin flip with Oklahoma getting the nod for having home field advantage. So I think this is a game that's going to be, it's expected to be tight throughout, and I think it will be tight throughout. But you do have some storylines beyond the X's and O's. You got Sharon Moore coming back home. And I know coaches try to downplay this. We saw it with Josh Heupel last year. But, this is significant for Moore, just like it was significant for Heupel. There's going to be emotion there. And I think there might be emotion for Brent Venables. Not just with Sharon Moore, but everyone's looking at Venables. To this point, he's listed as a coach on the hot seat. And taking this game from Michigan relieves that pressure, so to speak. And then don't forget the history of this. It's not even a rivalry. It took 50 years to get a rematch. And I think that adds to the drama here. I think you add in College GameDay, you add in a packed Norman, and then you've got the energy of these two fan bases and one of the biggest non-conference games of the entire season across the entire sport. So what's really at stake here? It's pretty simple. The winner doesn't just pick up a ranked win. The winner gets to, establish themselves early on in week 2 as a legitimate college football playoff contender. And for Oklahoma, it's a chance to show that material is not just hype, that Venables' recruiting and roster building is paying off, and that they're ready to compete as they go into year 2 of the SEC. And Michigan, they're in a conference with Oregon on the rise, with Ohio State being the defending national champions. It's a chance for them to send a message that even with a true freshman quarterback, the Wolverines are still built to contend. And a win, truth. A road win in Norman would speak volumes to that. So when it all gets started on Saturday night, it's about credibility. It's about momentum. Maybe it's about a playoff preview. I still struggle with that going into week 2. But we're about to find out a lot about both of these teams. Is John Mateer the real deal? Can Brent Venables' defense handle Michigan's physicality? Is Bryce Underwood ready for a moment like this, or will he have a freshman reality check? Because those kind of things hit harder under the bright lights, particularly on the national stage. But one thing's for sure, one thing we do know is that when the dust settles, college football in general is going to know a whole lot more about both of these programs.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
So Saturday night in Norman, that's the topic of our conversation. Welcome to the Sooner Nation podcast. Oklahoma's played, look, they've played in their fair share of high-state games over the last, century. But I think given everything that's happened since Lincoln Riley left and Brent Venables arrived, this one feels different. I think this feels like a crossroads moment. With all the national attention, game day and so forth, the lights are going to be bright. Using the pun. And you got a Michigan team they're 2 years removed from a national championship. They're a team that's stacked with one of the deepest rosters in the country. And look, they're coming in to spread, to flex some Big Ten muscle, so to speak, against the new kids on the block in the SEC. But if you listen to Brent Venables at all this week in his press conference, that this week, it's not about pageantry. It's about, it's not about hype videos. It's not about national headlines. I think he's very clear. This, for him and for this program, this is about finding exactly where Oklahoma stands on the national scale, on the national level. And, his words told the story when he met with the media this week. His words, quote, "We've got a great opportunity this week with Michigan coming into town. It's going to be a really cool matchup. Two incredible programs that represent all the excellence in college football for a long, long time. For our football team, most importantly, it'll be an opportunity for us to match up with what's been the last several years one of the best teams in college football." So, it's not lost on Brent Venables. He knows the challenge. Michigan's coming in with 51 returning lettermen, a 31-5 mark in Big Ten play over the last 36 games. That's a textbook definition of dominance. And Venables flat out called their roster elite. He talked about the strength in the trenches. He talked about their playmakers on both sides of the ball and their freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood. Venables says that Underwood looks mature beyond his years. And I don't think he's wrong. I talked about Underwood already in this episode, but it's a kid that was the number one recruit in the entire 2024 class, and he looked the part last week. But to me, this is what I found interesting. Venables made it clear that this isn't just about stopping one guy. Again, quote, he said, it's really about us. It's about the fundamentals. It's about the effort. It's about the physicality. Now, sure, his words, Underwood reminds him of Trevor Lawrence. He's quick. He's decisive. He's poised. But if Oklahoma can control the line of scrimmage, you kind of see everything else falling into place for the Sooners. And something we've hinted, in the first two segments, there is a personal angle in this game. Michigan head coach Sharon Moore, he once played for Venables at Oklahoma. Now, Moore was an offensive lineman. Venables was a defensive coordinator, but Venables was a coach in the program that Moore played on. And you could hear the respect that Venables had towards Moore. He called him a great leader. He said he was ultra consistent, super physical, and really smart. So that's the kind of connection that adds a unique wrinkle to an already big-time matchup. You could say teacher versus pupil. But inside Oklahoma's own locker room, Venables also pointed out a couple stories that are worth telling with the Sooners. He talked about Gentry Williams, who battled injuries to come back and start for this program in week one. And Williams has earned Venables' admiration for refusing to give up. He talked about Owen Heineke, a former walk-on turned linebacker who Venables said has just a bad case of the wants. I love that description. But those are the kind of stories that build a team's backbone heading into a game like this. So, naturally, people across the landscape, they want to frame this as SEC versus Big Ten. Yeah, this is the new world order of college football, but Venables, he's not buying into that. His words were pretty plain, pretty simple. Quote, "This is Oklahoma and Michigan. We happen to be in the SEC. They happen to be in the Big Ten. Respectfully, that's how I see it. That's big enough in itself. This isn't SEC versus Big Ten. This is Oklahoma versus Michigan." And honestly, he's right. I think you have to, for the moment, I think you have to just take the conference bragging rights and throw them out the window. This game is about two blue bloods colliding, and that's huge in and of itself. This isn't about Oklahoma proving that they belong in the national title conversation and Michigan proving that life without Jim Harbaugh hasn't slowed them down. And so with that brings a lot of emotions. Venables was candid about it. He admitted that he gets amped up for games like this. But he did hammer home the message of poise and discipline. And it's a statement that's been around for a while. I think Spencer Rattler, when he was in Norman, he was kind of giving credit for coining this phrase, but it goes beyond that. But Venables said it. He said, "Pressure is a privilege." And that's a line that's worth remembering. He doesn't want the emotions of the game day set being there. He doesn't want the noise of the lights. He doesn't want the hype. He doesn't want any of that to hijack his team's focus. And he's right. Because those first 5 minutes Saturday night, they're going to be electric. I hope that the crowd is deafening. And that's where games like this, they're won or they're lost. And whether you let the atmosphere fuel you, which I think that's what Venables really, really wants, or rattle you, which is, again, what Venables really, really wants from Michigan, they define how this thing goes. But I keep coming back to this. Michigan's defense is no joke. Even after sending guys to the NFL, they've got 7 returning starters who've logged at least 10 career starts. It's a defensive unit that's long, that's athletic, and they're confident. And Venables said it best. He said their culture comes off in tape. You see who these guys are. You can just see it, not just players. You can see the culture that they're coached in. So that means Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer, they're going to face their first true test together. And we knew that. We knew coming in that week 2 was going to be the test. Even after lighting up Illinois State in week 1. This Wink Martindale defense, it is built to confuse quarterbacks. It's built to limit explosive plays. It's built to make you uncomfortable. And from Mateer and Arbuckle, how they respond to what's going to be a chess match, it tells us everything that we need to know where this offense is heading as conference play looms. And so there's a bigger picture here, and Brent Venables gets it. He knows that games like this, they're bigger than just 60 minutes of football. They're about momentum. They're about recruiting. They're about giving fans something to rally behind. And when he talked about the crowd, and if you're going, listen, he's talking to you. He said, you're part of being able to give so many people a lot of excitement and passion. You give people hope. That's what Brent Venables wants to do on Saturday night. But he didn't leave out the fans. He flat out said that they can affect the game. He praised last week's Walk of Champions and said the players feed off of the crowd's emotion. And you got to believe, man, Saturday night, that stadium has to be rocking. It can't be ho-hum. From the kickoff to the final gun, it's got to be loud. So let's do what we like to do here on the Sooner Nation podcast. Let's kind of pull back for a second. And again, let's refocus on what's at stake here for Oklahoma. Again, it's about legitimacy. It's about setting the foundation for what they want to accomplish in the SEC. It's about showing that they're not just joining the party, that they're ready to contend here. And the same is for Michigan. We said it. It's about showing that even with a freshman quarterback and a new head coach going into year number 2, they're still one of the sport's elite. So when you look at Norman, Oklahoma on Saturday night, it has all the ingredients of a classic game. It's got history, it's got tradition, it's got elite talent on both sides, and it's a stage that's big enough for the entire country to see. And when Brent Venables was asked to sum it all up, he said this: "This is going to be a great physical matchup and a great litmus test. I know that our guys are looking forward to the challenge." And honestly, Brent, so is all of Sooner Nation.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
All right, so let's bring it home here with the final segment of the Sooner Nation podcast. Again, I just want to say thanks for hanging out with us. We've been spotlighting it. The whole nation is spotlighting it. Week 2 of the college football season shines right here in Norman, Oklahoma. It doesn't get bigger than this. Number 15, Oklahoma. Number 18, Michigan. Under the lights, Owen Field. The 2 blue blood programs, the 2 rabid fan bases, and the one game that can set the tone for the entire season for both programs. Both teams just steamrolled their opponents in week 1. Oklahoma cruised past Illinois State. Michigan handled New Mexico. But for both programs, Saturday night's going to be different. This is not about tune-ups. It's about proving legitimacy on the national stage. And what makes this matchup so fascinating, again, it's the quarterbacks. I mean, just 2 different stories. On Oklahoma's side, you got John Mateer, a transfer from Washington State, who looked electric in his debut. We talked about the almost 400 yards. We talked about the 3 touchdowns passing, that he spread the ball to 9 different receivers. A guy who looked comfortable, he looked confident, and he looked like the guy who could handle the big stage. Michigan's Bryce Underwood, 5-star freshman. I think the word phenom is probably not misused here. Threw for 250 yards and a touchdown last week, but that was at home, and that was against New Mexico. Now he's walking into his first road start. He's walking into a primetime game in one of the loudest environments in college football, and I think that's a whole different animal. So when you look at a national perspective, right, what do the national experts think of this game? And surprise, they're pretty split on it. We'll start with ESPN's Greg McElroy. He made it clear on SportsCenter that he trusts Oklahoma more than he trusts Michigan. And like we just talked about, for him, it's all about the quarterback spot. McElroy went ahead to point out that how hard it is for young quarterbacks to go on the road and early in their careers. And he mentioned Arch Manning, the struggle at Ohio State last week. He mentioned Alabama's Ty Simpson, not necessarily a young guy, but a first-year starter, and his struggles with Florida State. And his point's pretty simple. No matter how talented you are, that first true road test, it usually humbles you. And that's what he expects for Bryce Underwood. And he said this, quote, "Will Underwood be able to keep his poise enough to pull off the outright upset? I don't think he can." That's the end of the quote. That's what he says. He believes that Mateer's experience and Oklahoma's home field advantage, they tilt this game towards the Sooners. And all of Sooner Nation shares that enthusiasm, right? They share that hope. But not everyone sees it that way. CBS Rick Neuheisel, longtime coaching career, he's back in Michigan. Why? Well, he's a Big Ten homer. That's one. But then he keeps going back to Martindale, the defensive coordinator. And Neuheisel pointed back to last year's bowl win over Alabama when the Wolverines held Jalen Milroe to just 7 yards rushing on 16 carries. He believes that Martindale has the perfect game plan to limit Mateer's legs, to force him into throws, and to let Michigan's veteran defense take control. Now, he also mentioned the running back position with Justice Haynes and his 159 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. But Neuheisel, at the end of the day, he sees a path for Michigan to shorten this game and grind out a win. But I would also caution Neuheisel on what Oklahoma's defense did to Milroe last year in Norman. Michigan wasn't the only one to limit what Alabama could do offensively. Oklahoma very much did. So then you got Zachary Cohen from Vegas Insider. Now he's siding with McElroy here. Cohen sees Oklahoma as the safer bet. And he's got numbers to back it up. Under Brent Venables, Oklahoma is 15-2 at home as a favorite. And they're also 4-0 against the spread in home games with totals between 42 and 49 points. And that's exactly where this one sits. So that's not random. That's consistency. That's exactly this type of matchup. Now, Cohen raised a fair point about Michigan's head coach as well. Sherrone Moore's only in his second season as the guy in charge, and his track record, it's not been great. So I think, just like Venables, I think Moore, the jury's still out on whether he can keep Michigan at the level that Jim Harbaugh built it to be. But Cohen's conclusion is this. This is a quote. For those that want action on this box office showdown, I feel the Sooners are nothing. There's a chance Oklahoma's offense gets hot, and I don't think Michigan has the firepower to keep it up right now. End of quote. So where does that leave us? The experts are divided, but the keys to the game are pretty clear. I think for Michigan, it starts with Justice Haynes in the ground game. If he's rolling, it takes pressure off of Bryce Underwood, and it really keeps Oklahoma's offense on the sidelines. But for the Sooners, it's about getting after that quarterback. It's about R. Mason Thomas and that defensive front. That what they need to do, they have to keep Underwood uncomfortable. They have to force sacks. They have to force him into turnovers. And really, the biggest thing they can do is they can make him second guess. And they need to do that early. I think explosive plays are going to matter in this game. Mateer showed last week what he's willing to, that he's willing to spread the ball around. You combine that with his ability to extend plays with his legs, and you've got the recipe for chunk yardage plays. So the question is going to be, can Michigan's secondary hold up for 4 quarters against that threat? And I mentioned it before. I mean, we've talked about it a couple of times. There's the chess match here. Brent Venables, one of the most aggressive defensive minds in the country. Martindale, one of the most disciplined. Which one of these two guys blinks first defensively? And we talked about Oklahoma. This is their chance for legitimacy. We talked about Venables and Mateer, that their chance to show that the Sooners can stand, toe-to-toe with the nation's elite. And man, I don't think we can emphasize enough, though, that a win here for Oklahoma over Michigan, I mean, it gives the Sooners momentum. I really think a win here puts them on track to have a great chance, confidence-wise, to go into the Cotton Bowl 5-0 against Texas. But for Michigan, it's about proving the standard hasn't changed. Bryce Underwood, he has all the talent in the world, but can he deliver in a hostile environment? Can Sherrone Moore guide the Wolverines to a marquee win without Jim Harbaugh? One thing's for sure, Saturday night in Norman, it won't just be about one game. It's going to be about identity, about legitimacy, and about sending a message to the rest of college football. So ultimately, who's got the edge? I think if you ask, clearly, if you ask McElroy and Cohen, it's Oklahoma. If you ask Neuheisel, it's Michigan. And I think that's what makes this game so compelling. 2 different styles, 2 different strengths, 2 different paths to victory. By the end of the night, you got one blue blood who's going to walk away with a statement win. You got another blue blood who's going to leave with more questions than answers. So right here in Norman, under the lights on national television, with College GameDay in town, guys, it really doesn't get much bigger than this. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on the Sooner Nation podcast. I hope you enjoy the game. I hope you enjoy your college football weekend. Man, we just can't tell you how much we appreciate you chilling with us and hanging with us for a little bit. Have a great weekend. We'll be back to talk post-game.
be the man who's working hard.